Dear viewers, welcome to Anusha Guru Astro channel. And before I start, before we deep dive into our chapters, first let me pay my obeisance to my Guru Kanchi Paramacharya Sri Chandrasekhara Saraswati Swami. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om, 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 Om. Hi viewers, so let us now get into our chapter. Today I want to talk about the nature's intelligence. When I say nature's intelligence, beyond the realms of the human mind, that nature has its own intelligence, which I am going to uh, give you in depth the discovery of what I have discovered through the 12 zodiac signs, right? First, I want to go with this the four triangles that basically describes the dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. First, what is dharma triangle? Dharma triangle, if you go by the Kala Purusha chakra, Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius represents the dharma triangle. These are the three zodiac signs which you know represents the element of fire, and the jiva, the and the what is fire, what does fire represents? Fire represents the creativity and as well as the destruction, right? And even the we are born because of the fire, from the fire between the two, the Agni Tattva that was there between your father and mother, and the progeny happens from there. So we ourselves are a product of fire, and fire can be used for destruction as well, like nuclear bombs, which you know. Here, I wanted to know, give you some hints what is about the dharma and the fire element. Fire element actually it originates from the underbelly and it goes to the top. When I say underbelly to top, it always moves to the from ground to the heavenly direction, from bottom to top. What it represents is those who are in the fiery signs have the urge in themselves to always do something creative in this universe. That is what the fire represents ultimately. And and it is a messenger between devas and the earth. And that is why when we perform homas, we offer the food items and the ghee and to the fire, so that is a messenger that takes it to devas, as that is consumed by devas. That's a mythology behind why we do the homas, right. And that's about the dharma triangle, and that's about the fire element. And next is the artha triangle, which is your 2, 6, and 10. What it represents is the earth element. And what does the earth ultimately represents? Earth represents the wealth underneath the ground, underneath the surface, and it also represents the uh, it represents the wealth and your perseverance, because you know earth takes all the good and bad, and good and bad, like we throw so many dust and so much of waste into the earth, and earth consumes it, right? And that is that's the element which is essentially represents the service part of the service angle of the earth. And without service of the Bhuma, without the service of the earth, we would not be there. And it represents all of us comes here, come here to do some karma, right? And the earth is the place where the karma is performed, and that is where the three dimensions of the earth and the Artha triangle is essentially covered in these three, two, 6, and 10. And it's essentially Taurus, and this is earth, is the earth element. And next, coming to the Kama triangle, which is the Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. What is Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius essentially? Right? It represents the element of air. What does the air represents? Air represents, air is used for communication between people, right? From one place to another, we talk through telephones, and essentially it represents the communication angle, and and it represents the other dimension as it is very carefree. When you say carefree, those who are in the predominantly in the Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, you would seen either if their lagna falls or your uh, moon Rashi is essentially placed, if it is placed in between Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, they tend to be carefree because the air goes from one direction to another based on the momentum. It doesn't have a direction, right? So that is one part of the air element, and it takes the when the air is omnipresent and it takes wherever. For example, if it is a container, if it's an empty container and the air is filled in there, so it's essentially everywhere persistent, and at least between your earth element to the top stratosphere, like beyond the vacuum, that the where we say the emptiness Shiva exists, right? So this part is essentially represented by the Kama triangle. This is what we call as Kama triangle 3, 7, and 11. And essentially the desires, right? It essentially represents the desires. And next, coming to moksha. Moksha is nothing but the emancipation, and it is Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio. And these are essentially the water, right? Water element. And water, what does it represent? It represents most of the emancipation, like when you do any karma, when you do any karma or oblations, right? Oblations in the sense like pitru karma or whatever, and it's done in the reverse, and Gaya is essentially represent, the reason is emancipation is represented by the water, and you leave the whatever that you leave is essentially a representation of a water. And that is why you do, if you are a Brahmin, you know that when you do Sandhya Vandanam, that is where the oblations begin, where you do all uh, essentially all the pleasings through the water, and that is when you leave something, and that it represents the emancipation represented. And these people are generally flexible in the sense like any water, if you see it takes the shape of the container that you fill. So that means they are very flexible in their approach, and their approach in the sense like they adapt to the circumstances that they are in. So this is the nature's intelligence based on the four elements and four triangles that essentially represents. And the Akasha triangle, Akasha is not the fifth element of Akasha is through the nakshatras, which we don't see in your day-to-day life. That is a different experience, but these are the four elements which I want you to connect and relate, and how this nature is essentially structured, and that's the basis how the whole phenomenon of nature has given us, right? And just to understand from that dimension is very interesting. So that's the reason why I want to share some of my thoughts on this, right? You know, uh, yeah. And next one here, I want to talk about each zodiac sign. What is that element that it represents, and the nature of the sign, whether it is movable, fixed, or mutable, or dual. And when you say Aries, for example, the fire element, the moksha signs for the fire element is essentially the water element, right? Whenever you want to douse the fire, and it is done by the water, right? Essentially, Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio represents the water element, and the fire is usually doused with the water, and that is that. So the moksha for fire is essentially water. That it was mean. That is the intelligence. That's the discovery that you have to understand basically how it is structured, because the fourth, 8, and 12 from the respective signs, like for example Aries, from fourth of Aries is your Cancer, and eighth is your Scorpio, and 12th is the Pisces, which is essentially the emancipation signs are for Aries, which is essentially the fire element, right? And coming to next is Taurus. From Taurus, which is the ether element, which is the earth element, right? Which is fixed element. And from fourth of Taurus to fourth, eighth, and 12th, it is essentially it's you have Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, right? And what does it convey? Essentially, what it conveys is the earth element is the final, the earth is going to be destroyed through the fire. This is the message that you should get. So the whenever you say this whole earth, the earth is created from the fireball of, if you see the cosmo phenomenon on how the discovery of earth, if you see it is, there is a belief that all this has come as a ball of fire from sun, right? And essentially it is, if it has come through sun and the ball of fire, and it is essentially going through, the emancipation is also going through through the fire, right? So that is what it represents. Coming to Gemini or Mithuna, which is a air element and dual sign, and fourth, eighth, and 12th, from there it represents Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. So, what does it convey, right? And it's a air element, and from air, and air, so told, emancipation is going to be the earth. So, earth, when it separates, so air is, there is no presence of air, right? Yeah, until earth is there, you will have air, and once the earth gets out or dissolves, and then becomes your air, becomes the entire vacuum. So that is what it represents. And coming to Cancer, which is a watery sign, and Aquarius, Gemini, and Libra, which is essentially the air sign, airy signs, right? Airy signs is going to be the liberator and emancipator for a water, right? What you see the phenomenon in a day-to-day life, right? See, what happens is when the sun heats up the air, and the air which is in touch with your water and the oceans, right, that is get burnt up, and your hydrogen and oxygen is separated. So that is how it becomes a vapor form, right? So that is how, what I'm saying is essentially your H2O decomposed is decomposed by the air, which is getting the Agni Tattva from your uh, fire, and burns up the water, and it turns into vapor. So that's the intelligence. This is the nature's intelligence, and I think you really enjoyed what I discovered, and it's maybe an eye opener for you. And if I'm I'm a passionate, I will call myself as a passionate student of astrology, and I want to learn more. And still, if you have any queries or online consultations, you can reach out to me at any time on my mobile number. And if you like this presentation, please subscribe. And I want you to be an active, and I'll have so many videos that will be published soon, and based on whatever I discover, and from whatever knowledge I acquire from different texts and sources, right? Yeah, and thank you all, and my contact number will be down below, or I can, that's 98400 18697, and I can be reached on any Saturdays and Sundays for any consultations on astrology, and that's me, Ranganathan, signing off. Thank you.